Hello, and welcome everybody to the National Trends in Disability Employment,
or nTIDE,
Lunch and Learn series.
Just a few housekeeping items before we begin.
This webinar is being recorded.
We will post an archive of each webinar each month on our website at www.researchondisability.org/nTIDE.
This site will also provide copies of the presentations, the speakers' bios, full transcripts, and other valuable resources.
As an attendee of this webinar, you are a viewer.
To ask questions of the speakers, click on the Q&A box on your webinar screen and type your questions into the box.
Speakers will review these questions and provide answers during the last section of the webinar.
Some questions may be answered directly in the Q&A box.
If you have any questions following this recording, please contact us at disability.statistics@unh.edu
or toll free at 866-538-9521 for more information.
Thanks for joining us.
Enjoy today's webinar.
I'm going to present some information on nTIDE. We do the nTIDE the first Friday of every month, usually. This month it was on the 8th as opposed to the 3rd. But we present the BLS statistics, Bureau of Labor Statistics, on the employment situation. And the data is actually drawn from the survey that the BLS does every month, which so many people make a lot out of the unemployment rate. And Andrew's going to present the data, and I'll hand it over to Andrew.
Okay, thanks, John.
Sure.
Paris, why don't you try to give me control again, because it doesn't seem to be any faster when you do it. All right, so this is our first slide. So the numbers aren't posted in here. This is what we had last month. And then the numbers you see, the 74.2 and the 30.9, those are the employment to population ratio. So the percentage of people who are employed, ages 16 to 64. And so I'm going to update the slide if it will allow me to do, and show you where it went. There it is. So we went from, for people with disabilities, it went from 30.9% of working age people are employed to 26.3% are employed. And for people without disabilities, it went from 74.2 to 63.2%. So go to the next chart. There you go. And so if we look in the past, in one single month, people with disabilities are almost at their lowest point they've ever been at. So this, the April of 2014, so April 2014, we were at 25.3%. We're now at 26.3%. So all the gains that were made basically since around 2005 are now gone. Now I'll say more about what that means later. For people without disabilities, you know, their down point for the Great Recession wasn't as far down, and certainly they're below where they were at the bottom of the Great Recession. So they were 69.6 in April of 2011, and they're now at 63.2%. Go to the next slide. Drum roll. All right, so let's just take a look. So we've traditionally in the nTIDE have done month to this month compared to last month, right? Last time this year. This is actually, and you'll have to ignore it didn't update. I need to do like an update, but this is actually March 2000 to April 2020. So the the first bar should be March 2020, and for both sides. So here we see that it went from 37.7% from last month to this month to 26.3%. For people without disabilities, it went from 73.5% last month to 63.2% this month. And we usually don't do month-to-month changes because they have yet to be able to seasonally adjust the disability time series because there hasn't been enough years to be able to do seasonal adjustment. So these are the seasonally unadjusted numbers. And a lot of people are saying we need to look at the seasonally unadjusted numbers because the seasonal adjustments were not designed to handle this time period. It's so unique. So in the end, when we think about this, go to the next slide, Ferris. It went down 17% for people with disabilities and a little bit less, 14, go back up. Slide might have been deleted. Yeah, go back up one. What this ended up meaning is that, oh, back down one. There, stop. All right, so what this means is that there were 950,000 fewer, so almost 1 million fewer people fewer people with disabilities that were working, so working age. And so that's over a 1 month period, right? For people without disabilities, it went down, they're a much bigger portion of the labor force, of the workforce. It went down 19, almost a little over 19 million. So people with disabilities, percentage-wise, were more impacted by the COVID, what's now being called the COVID recession. Down one, and then actually down two. So there is a glimmer of hope, kind of. And that's when we look at the labor force participation rate. So again, this is March to April. In disregard, I made an error when I didn't didn't auto refresh things like I thought it would. The labor force participation rate went down down a bit for people with disabilities and down a bit for people without disabilities, but not as much as the employment rate. So what this means is that it's showing that people didn't jump out of the labor market. So when you think of employment statistics, there are 3 categories. There's working, employed. There's unemployed, which means you're either on layoff, furloughed, which is the likely case in this recession, or you're looking for work. You've lost your job completely and you're looking for work. And then there's a 3rd category, not in the labor force. So you're no longer actively looking for work and you're not on layoff or furloughed. And it's really good to see this number not go down by much. I mean, this is still a big decrease relative to past nTIDEs, but this decline suggests that people are staying engaged either on furlough or actively looking for work. And so this is taken as a good sign. Now, for me, so I'm an economist, but I'm a microeconomist, not a macroeconomist who does the full economy. I look at individual economic decisions. That's called microeconomics. But for me, what distinguishes this recession from any other recession is the number of people who are furloughed, right? Furlough, or it's called on layoff, and that goes back to the times when factories would shut down and people could be recalled. You didn't actually lose your job, you were just temporarily on layoff. And you know, when factories used to shut down, they used to lay people off, but they could potentially be recalled. And so this issue is very different than other recessions. It's closed permanently, and or people lost their jobs more permanently and had to find new jobs, possibly at a new employer. And so this is a good sign that people are staying in the labor force and not jumping out. My big concern for people with disabilities is that they may become discouraged or move towards benefits programs that are known to be kind of traps. Social Security, disability insurance, Social Security supplemental security income. Those two programs in particular are known as kind of, once you're in them, it's hard to get out of them because they're not temporary benefits, they're permanent benefits, conditional on having the underlying health condition. So to make a long story short, next slide, we're going to do an nTIDE special report mid-month. We're intending to have this go off on May 15th. And we're going to look at the numbers that the nTIDE uses traditionally are from tables that the Bureau of Labor Statistics posts at 8:30 this morning, at 8:30 every first Friday. But we also can get the raw data, so the survey responses that people give. And we can analyze that to get more detail, to look at who's on furlough, who's on layoff, and see who lost their jobs permanently. And so we'll be able to tease out some of that more greater detail by disability status. And that might give us a sense of the degree to which people with disabilities are impacted in terms of complete job loss. And my guess is that if areas, in the states and areas that are shut down longer, it's going to likely to be that they lose their job permanently because that employer will kind of go bankrupt and liquidate, or not say that they're going to be recalling people. They may close permanently. So we'll be tracking that new number of the number of furloughed versus complete. But again, that has to come out at the middle of the month because we need the raw data to do that. I'm going to switch to Denise. So go ahead and do 2 slides. We'll go straight to your first slide there, Denise. So go down to Ferris.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. So here's what we're going to do. The good news is I actually have my slides in paper in front of me. So if we go slow, I'll keep talking and we'll just catch up. So usually the first thing that we talk about is the federal policy update. What's going on in Washington? How does that affect employment? What do we know? So as we talked about last month, and as I'm sure you've read in the news, we've had 3.5 so far pieces of legislation passed by Congress related to COVID. They've literally been referred to as 1, 2, 3, and 3.5. We are now trying to see what will happen with COVID 4. Don't ask me why we went to 3 to 3.5 to 4, but that's what we're doing. So everyone talks about 4. What needs to be in there? Right now, we don't know the timeline particularly. They're looking at it right now. The Senate is here in Washington, as you probably have heard. The House has not come back into town yet. We don't know when they're coming back into town yet. Some people say May 18th, but we have not heard that from Speaker Pelosi yet. So we're not quite sure. So clearly, and they're clearly the folks who are here or those who are working remotely are working on a package, but it's going to take some time after they get here. And it starts in the House this time. The last time it started in the Senate. So we don't know what the time frame is. It's slipping, but there will be a COVID 4. The things that the disability community is looking for to address the needs of people with disabilities, additional home and community-based services funding. None of the money that went into COVID 3 and 3.5 will fund home and community-based services funding. It went to an increase in the FMAP, the money that the federal government gives in response to what the states put in the Medicaid program. So it went to FMAP, it went to basic Medicaid. It didn't necessarily go to the waivers, which is where traditionally home and community-based services live. So we're looking for a targeted amount of money into home and community-based services to meet this emergency need. That includes in some states, and in many states, pieces of employment, either employment preparation or actual employment. Protecting the rights of people with disabilities in the face of rationing of care. There's a lot that's being talked about that right now. Increase in SNAP, that's the food stamp program, Meals on Wheels funding, so that that eligibility specifically includes people with disabilities. It does now if you're aging or you fit into one of the other categories, but it does not now necessarily protect people with, allow people with disabilities generally to get expanded eligibility for SNAP or Meals on Wheels. And then no IDEA waivers, there's been a push, although that one for right now seems kind of settled. So we'll see what happens. But to make sure nothing in terms of civil rights are waived in that next package. There are some things that are holding it up right now. Again, nothing to do with the things that we're talking about. Republicans can't seem to agree on whether or not there's going to be a payroll tax cut, whether there's going to be additional direct payments to individuals, whether there's going to be money sent to states and local governments, or additional unemployment money. So again, there is stuff holding it up. We'll just have to see. But that is everything. It has sucked all of the oxygen out of not just the country, but Washington. So that's what's happening in Washington right now. Next slide. So I'm going to give you a couple of quick slides that I hope that are things I shared last time on our call, but I wanted to make sure and share again. The first one was from NTAC, the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition. They have an entire web page around serving transition age students with disabilities during COVID. There's resources, guidance. They keep updating it all the time. They also have an ongoing discussion on the page. So I just want to make sure you know about that one. And as I say, I shared that one and the next one last month. I just want to emphasize them. The next one is from WINTAC. So for you guys, again, the WIOA, next slide, the WIOA Information Center, Technical Assistance Center, and they did a series of last month. They are all on the website now, and they are doing an ongoing, continuing chat on the website on all of these issues. So again, if you've got questions and things that you're talking about and need answers to, or want to talk with others who are in the field around what's going on in this virtual world now, particularly around WIOA issues, WINTAC is the place to go for that. Okay, next slide. Now this is a new one. There's a new piece out that's a new fact sheet from the RTC on rural. So it's how will COVID-19 recession impact people with disabilities in rural America. It's a really short 2-page fact sheet looking at how it'll affect. So people with disabilities in this time in rural areas are likely to have less emergency savings fund. They're less likely to have access to paid leave. They're less likely to be able to work from home. And all of those things obviously affect the employment that we talk about on these calls. And it's a really nice piece. And if you haven't been there, they have some additional resources up there as well on COVID and rural America, a whole variety of resources that are available from either from them or from others that they've posted. Next slide. The thing that struck me for a minute was, and it kind of goes with what Andrew was saying, it's just a quote from that fact sheet. And what it says is, as people with disabilities in rural areas still struggle to recover from the 2008 recession, they likely already feel the impacts from COVID-19. And that's kind of where we are. And it struck me in reading it. Next slide. The next one, report out from Source America on how COVID-19 is reshaping the future of work for people with disabilities. It's now available. The link is there. 4 emerging issues related to the service sector recession and how that affects the need for people with disabilities, while at the same time creating a greater need for those very services. The government interventions for displaced workers obviously are still inadequate. Individual responses to the near-time interventions could have negative long-term consequences. Again, that kind of links back into some of what Andrew was talking about. And ableism obviously continues to widen the gaps for people with disabilities in this time. The next slide. The next one on COVID, you'll see most of my stuff, again, this month is around COVID in one way or another. This is the quote from this one. The world is a little scary and stressful right now. I thought, a little, wow. The world seems very scary and stressful right now. So this is a tip sheet from the Implementation Science and Practice Advances Resource Center and Transition to Adulthood. It's a tip sheet on maintaining emotional wellness. There are a number of these out there. This one I thought was particularly well done. It's easy, 2 pages, an easy thing to have available for the people you're working with. That's all. Next one. So a couple of things now from, if you'll recall on the nTIDE several months ago now, Michael Morris from the National Disability Institute came and spoke about some of the work they're doing. They have a couple of new things out right now. This one is called the Financial Resilience Center. And this has specifically come up as people with disabilities are related to the financial challenges of COVID-19. So there's a bunch of resources up here around employment and unemployment, the stimulus, money management, public benefits, housing, food, and healthcare, and then scams. And what's interesting, I thought about it, we're getting, I don't know about all of you, but we're certainly getting a lot of questions about benefits, about the effect of the stimulus on benefits, about money management in this time, and all of the public, and then public benefits as well, just in general, and what that means for people with disabilities and how it all fits together. They've got some really nice resources up there, including they've got a couple of things from some of their partner organizations who are in the financial planning field. You know, you can link to a virtual financial counselor just free of charge, asking some questions of them. And there's also a place to build your basic financial skills, which is just nice anytime. But since Michael was on recently, I thought this was a good one to share, and it's very well done. And then next slide, they're doing a webinar as well related to some of the things Michael talked about, which is there's going to be a conversation with financial regulators on community development during COVID-19. And again, this one, here's the link for it. They've got regulators coming on from FDIC, OCC, and the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, and talking about what community development organizations, disability service providers, and financial services providers can all do during and after COVID-19. And again, this one I thought was really well done. That one of the best things about NDI, I think, beyond the resources, is that they have really good connections into the financial service world that we don't always have as a disability community. And so when they provide stuff like this, they're really knowledgeable folks. So if this is something you're interested in, there it is. Next one, next slide. You've heard me talk about the, now I blanked on the name, GPS, Workforce GPS, which is basically a website that has all kinds of materials targeted toward the American Job Centers. They are not just disability resources, but all kinds of resources. This one in particular, they have just come out with some disability employment e-learning modules. There are 3 of them. They're listed here. This is how you can link to them. And then they're going to do a 1-hour live webinar on May 20th to learn more about how to use the modules. Again, I think I talk a lot on these calls about the importance of the disability community linking into the AJCs, the American Job Centers. And these are 3 really nice ways to talk about what they're about, what they're doing. And they were put together, I didn't put that on the slide, but they were built, there's a committee of people who are working around these, including a bunch of disability experts. So I have not done the modules, but given who some of the people are who helped put them together, I'm guessing they're pretty well done. And again, then there's a live webinar to help you do it as well. So this is a good one. And the more help we can give the AJCs, the better off we're all going to be. Next slide. Oh, this one's from our friends at our friends and co-sponsors from Kessler, and the UNH folks are going to be on it as well. It's a new webinar that's coming up on June 3rd from 12 to 1 Eastern on the ADA generation, new perspectives on employment and college graduates with disabilities. So this is based on the 2020 Kessler Foundation National Employment and Disability Survey, and specifically then targeted on recent college grads. They're going to be talking about, you know, what does it mean in a post-ADA world? And I think this is going to be fascinating. I talk all the time with college students. Frankly, I was just on a call with 50 college students with intellectual disabilities, and many of them didn't know what the ADA was, which I see as both good and bad. Obviously, good that they don't think in some of those terms that the rest of us did. Bad, they don't know the history. So we're working on that. But this is a great webinar. Like I said, some of the UNH people I think are going to be on it. Kessler sponsoring it, and the link to register is right there. Next slide, please. 2 pieces of kind of data stuff, if you will. I say to you all the time, I'm not the data research person, but I know a lot of you are. So this is a new report out of VR on state VR services programs before and after enactment of WIOA. So what they did was they took data collected and reported by VR agencies to RSA before and after and looked at trends. So they're looking particularly at characteristics of individuals served, services they received, employment outcomes, and it also goes into some detail about the technical assistance that RSA has provided as WIO changes have been implemented. But from a data point of view, and to look at the changes, clearly WIO in this field made some pretty significant changes in how we look at employment, or at least we hope they turn out to be significant. And that's part of what this is looking at. Okay, I think I'm up to my last slide here. Thanks so much for your help, Ferris. This one also is, this is a companion piece to the chart book. Basically, this is the chart book that's the companion piece to the National Beneficiary Survey, Disability Statistics 2015. This is DI, in other words, Social Security Disability, and SSDI, DI and SSI, program participants, characteristics of employment. SSA just released it in March. Lots of working activity data and charts. Looked really cool to me. I can see stuff in charts better than I can see it when I'm reading straight statistics. But anyway, it looks at work activity, employment expectations and characteristics, services, factors affecting employment, and does all the charts that go with the National Beneficiary Survey. So I thought this one was really, really cool too if you haven't seen it yet. That's what I've got today. And now I get to introduce the speakers for today. So there we go. So I'm happy to introduce Libby Whitehead and Pat Holmes. They are colleagues at Disability Rights Louisiana. And as a person who works for AUCD, I always love introducing folks from some of our sister disability partners, disability organizations. They work on a project called FAIR, which is Financial Access, Inclusion, and Resources. This is a key program of the Kessler Foundation. This is our, and this, just so you know, this is our second in a series of nTIDE webinars on social justice and supports for people with disabilities who have court involvement. So we're lucky to have Libby, who is the program manager, and Pat, who's the case manager. And I'm going to turn it over to them and mute myself. Thank you all for being here.
All right. Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
You're good.
Okay, thank you. So thanks, Denise, for the introduction. My name is Libby, and like Denise had said, Pat and I work at Disability Rights Louisiana, and we're here to talk about our FAIR program, which is funded by the Kessler Foundation's Signature Employment Grant, and also is supported by JP Morgan and the Greater New Orleans Foundation. And we started seeing our first clients this past June, so we're really excited for the opportunity to tell you guys about what we've observed so far, our approach, and what we've observed now in the face of COVID-19. And we really appreciate nTIDE's shining a light on how formerly incarcerated people with disabilities have to navigate the employment process. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, we work at Disability Rights Louisiana, which is a nonprofit based in New Orleans, and we're the state's protection and advocacy organization for people with disabilities. So this means we're a team of attorneys, advocates, information and policy specialists, all who work together to promote and advocate for the civil rights of people with disabilities so that they're able to live an integrated life in the community with equal access to opportunities, safety, and independence. Next slide, please. Our FAIR program aims to improve the employment and the financial outcomes of formerly incarcerated job seekers with disabilities by providing wraparound financial coaching and case management support. FAIR was developed on the heels of Louisiana's 2017 legislative efforts to reduce its high prison population, which currently sits at over 31,000 people, with the highest incarceration rate in the world. We understood that around 40% of people who are incarcerated have disabilities, and we saw a gap in programming targeting this population. So we launched a program that targets two of the major predictors of incarceration, unemployment and poverty, which are also factors that disproportionately impact people with disabilities. And we really appreciate your referencing NDI's work in this area because they played a substantial role in helping us understand the importance of financial security for people with disabilities and in the development of this project. So when setting out to address these issues, rather than providing job placement services, which are readily available in our area for both the disability and the reentry communities, and rather than seeing employment as the end goal of our services, We see it as a vital step to a much broader process that helps people achieve financial security and remain in their communities. Most of our clients come to us seeking employment because they need to find a way to pay for food and shelter. And as financial coaches, we work to help them accomplish this, but first, we learn about how clients envision a successful future for themselves. So we can help them identify tangible financial goals that are more forward-thinking and that they're excited about, like saving for an apartment or being able to visit a family member. Then we break down manageable action steps towards those goals and show people where they can begin to start making these things happen, and where they should turn when they face setbacks as they begin to work out of poverty. Next slide, please. It looks like we got fast forwarded a little bit. I'm on slide 4, which is barriers. But I'll keep moving. So our clients have served prison sentences between 6 months and 41 years long. And many have experienced significant trauma before and during incarceration. So it's easy to understand why when new clients reach us, they're often facing all of these barriers listed on this slide at once. It looks like we're still one slide ahead. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. So for the sake of time, I'm only going to go into detail on some of the financial and legal barriers that these clients face, because you may be familiar with some of the other barriers, and these ones are more unique to this population. So when our clients come home from incarceration, they usually have no income or resources. And many of our new clients don't have bank accounts. Most have never managed bills on their own, haven't seen their credit report, haven't filed taxes in years, if ever. And many of them have been told that they shouldn't try to work and save money if they receive Social Security disability benefits, or if they want to receive disability benefits or SSI. These financial concerns pose barriers to employment when someone can't sign up for direct deposit with an employer, when their utilities get shut off, when their credit keeps them from getting an apartment of their own, or when they turn down a job because they're afraid of losing their health insurance or their only form of income. When clients are ready, we're able to help them understand how work will impact their benefits, show them how to pay bills and which debts to prioritize, show them how to save a little bit of money every single month, and then teach them what their credit report means and show them how to use and open their banking products. And I'd like to note that our partner, the Financial Clinic, has been instrumental in giving us the training and tools we've needed to be able to provide these financial coaching services. Debt is a major consequence of incarceration. In Louisiana, people are released with an average debt of more than $7,000 in court-ordered fines and fees. And on top of this, some of our clients have Social Security overpayments, while others have massive child support debts. For example, one of our clients who was released in December after serving 14 years in prison was shocked to find out that he couldn't get his driver's license because he owed over $20,000 in child support, and he'd had no way to earn that money while he was in prison. Many of our clients have warrants, fines, and fees for legal issues that started before they were incarcerated. For example, one of our clients who spent 24 years in prison came home to find that he had a warrant for failure to appear in court and owed over $1,500 in fines and fees, all for traffic violations that happened in 1992. Unaddressed, these debts become employment barriers when they cause garnishment of wages and benefits, prevent people from getting jobs that require driver's licenses, and when they lead to arrest. Fortunately, we have a valuable partnership with a legal organization called the Justice and Accountability Center, who can often help us address our clients' legal financial obligations and outstanding warrants that predated their incarceration. We also rely on JAC, or Justice and Accountability Center, and other legal organizations to help our clients navigate the expungement process when they're eligible and address legal issues like custody, garnishment, and denial of subsidized housing based on a criminal record. Next slide, please. So the next slide covers our process and our eligibility guidelines. And 59% of our enrollees have been out of incarceration for less than 1 year when they come to us. Our referrals often come from community organizations, self-referrals who've heard about us through friends and family, mental health and drug courts, and we've gotten some from the Department of Corrections directly. Once we know that a referral meets our eligibility, we start our services in a meeting that can take about 2 hours, and it can take place in our office or somewhere in the client's neighborhood, like a restaurant or a library where they're comfortable and able to get to. And now in the days of COVID, it takes place over the phone. In our first meeting, we do what's called our baseline assessment, which first helps us identify our client's goals and screen for the barriers in all the categories included on the last slide. And this starts a discussion about potential solutions to their concerns. We find out what barriers they want to address first, what's most important to them. Then we outline specific action steps with clear target dates and responsibilities of who's going to do what and when to address these priority concerns. And it's at this point we consider a client enrolled in the program. Then we typically schedule follow-up meetings about twice a month and to identify what's been accomplished on both the coach and the client's end, to see what kind of issues they've run into and what next steps we both need to take to help them move forward. And before, we were pretty rigid in that we wanted these meetings to take place in person for trust building and relationship building purposes. But COVID has helped us see that phone and text communication can also be really effective, and it can lead to more frequent and casual and open communication because it's much easier to schedule around. And once a client attends 2 or more follow-up meetings, that's when we consider them an active participant in the program. And this follow-up process can continue until all the employment and financial barriers that are addressed, or until the client decides that they don't need our assistance anymore. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Pat, who's going to start by sharing an example of how he worked with a client.
Hi, thanks, Libby. So FAIR operates under the motto of meeting clients where they are. And when Jim came to us, he was living in a rehab facility. He was also in a pretty intensive drug court program as part of his parole release requirement, which required him to have 4 mandatory in-person meetings a week with his drug court counselor. However, Jim did establish goals with us that kind of were pretty iffy at the time because of the fact that these barriers in regards to the parole release requirements were getting in the way of him achieving the goals. But nonetheless, we did establish three pretty important goals for him, and that was getting a place of his own, working off of SSI income, and maintaining his health care coverage. So over the phase of 5 months, I helped to assist Jim with prioritizing these goals, and we accomplished many things, including helping him understand the importance of maintaining Medicaid coverage that will be protected if he was to lose his SSI payments because of work, and kind of allowed him to understand the Medicaid threshold for that amount that would cause him to lose his income. While managing his drug court obligations, we also helped Jim create a resume and cover letters to perform online job searches for the restaurant positions that he was most interested in. And he was a host previously, so that was the position we ultimately ended up getting Jim hired as. And now he's currently, was prior to COVID-19, I should say, making around $1,400 a month, which effectively got him off of that SSI. And in the same time, he was able to maintain his healthcare coverage. Also, through the help of our partners, JAC, Justice and Accountability Center, that Libby had mentioned, we were able to understand that Jim had a total of $626 in municipal and traffic court debts that he was unaware of. But JAC helped us get those things clear, so now he owes nothing in legal financial obligations. As COVID-19 has struck the economy, Jim has become laid off, and now we're just simply helping him access the income supports that he needs and constructing a spending plan around his current income levels and the expenses that he has in order to stay afloat during this economic shock. Next slide, please. Oh, you're there already. All right, so the project FAIR relies heavily on strong partnership organizations within the local community, as we refer a lot of our clients to these resources frequently. And so every service provider listed on this page is very important in supporting our clients by either serving them directly or by making referrals to us directly. Next slide. So this slide focuses a little bit on the FAIR outcomes that, hold on, I'm gonna wait till you get there. So this slide focuses more on fair outcomes within the first 10 months of the program. So we see 43 of the 71 individuals that enrolled in a fair program have become active participants, which Libby explained what that means. And active participation means that the individual had 3 or more follow-up meetings with their fair case manager after the initial intake meeting. Okay, so how has fair progressed? Within that same 10-month span, about 48% or 21 of the active clients enrolled in the program were employed in either a restaurant industry, from line cooks to bussers to hosts. They were employed in janitorial services, landscape, stocking, housekeeping, things like that. And the hourly wage ranged between $8.75 and $13 per hour for our clients that were employed. So broken down, about 52% or 11 were working full-time and 48% or 10 were working part-time. But since COVID has, like I said, took its toll on the economy, about 11 of our previously employed clients have lost jobs between March and April. However, 2 of them have regained employment. One is now working for a moving company and the other is checking bags at a hospital. Also, in regards to the debt, which is pretty substantial for our clients, we have been able to help about 9 of our clients reduce their legal financial obligations, which is a term that we use for legal debts that they owe, by nearly $20,000. And this has been accomplished largely by clients paying off these debts individually and largely due to the assistance of JAC, which is a huge partner of ours. Next slide, please. All right. So these are lessons learned throughout the program so far, and we learned a lot, especially around the holistic services that FAIR offers. We have realized that throughout the COVID-19 has offered us further evidence, essentially, that flexible and holistic services are essential for the cohort of people that we are serving. Our clients are most vulnerable to these economic shocks, and these shocks will persist due to this virus until these things are settled. And so we need to help them understand the information and resources out there available to them because they lack the technological skills to find that information themselves. So FAIR has essentially become a linchpin in drawing these connections for our clients in the action plans that we create during this COVID-19 pandemic, which has ultimately led us to, progressing and maintaining security with our clients through these hard times. Most of our clients also don't come to us seeking financial coaching. However, COVID-19 has made it really important for our clients to understand the importance of maintaining bank accounts, filing taxes, and understanding the debts in order to better, assist themselves in maintaining financial security during such a hard economic time right now. And so we also have connected with VITA representatives at United Way who help our clients file taxes remotely and assist them with understanding the tax process and things like that to better help them get the stimulus payments that they need and also to get the income tax payments that they have worked hard to receive. Also, with the help of Hope Credit Union, which is a partner organization, a credit union here in New Orleans that just deals with our clients individually. They have facilitated clients' online banking applications, and they have also waived membership fees for our clients. They're also even thinking about developing financial banking tools that are purely focused on individuals with disabilities. So that's a huge win during this time of pandemic. So we're seeing growth in the banking world for our clients. And we have also realized the importance of community engagement. So the partnership slides has shown us that there are a lot of organizations out there, and we need to more so rely on them to better assist our clients because there's a lack of service providers when it comes to providing resources and just intake services for clients who have disabilities and who have been formerly incarcerated. So our project has led to an increased understanding among reentry providers that people with disabilities can work and they have the legal rights and access to the funding and training and home health care services that they need to make employment outcomes more feasible and long-lasting. So we've made it our point to do more outreach and to define what disability means so that we can have a better association of people who know what the term disability means and therefore know how to service these people, especially as it pertains to SSI and SSDI benefits. So throughout this project, we've identified that there's a reluctance amongst many disability providers to serve these people with criminal records. For example, we know that in Louisiana, there are about 4 vocational rehabilitative services and employment networks that are currently serving formerly incarcerated people, and some even go to the extent to not even serve people who have criminal records. So we have to really like bridge that gap and understand that this community is in need of these types of services and they deserve to have these types of services. As COVID-19 has caused the hospitality industry to shut down, which is big in New Orleans, you know, majority of our economy is focused on the hospitality industry. It has shown us that we have an economic system that funnels people with criminal records into, you know, basic janitorial jobs and restaurant positions that don't really offer benefits and are really physically demanding for these individuals. And so the pandemic has caused key reentry job placement partners like Job One, a key partner organization of ours, to suspend career and workforce development activities, which in turn has highlighted the importance for us to develop the workforce development partnerships and employer partnerships on our own to better be able to assist our clients during economic hardships. Next slide. Okay, and this is the contact information for Libby and myself if anyone has any questions about the FAIR program or wants to get in contact with us.
All right, and I think that's it for what we'd prepared, but we'd love to have a discussion with you guys if you have any questions. How do, I should probably have asked this before. How do you guys typically handle the question and answer section? Should I be looking at the chat and jumping in?
Yeah, why don't I ask a few questions? So first question is, how do people with disability, how do individuals find out about you or connect with you or connect other individuals with you?
Okay, so that has happened through a ton of outreach efforts on our program's behalf. And so we've made sure to go into spaces where there are, you know, grassroots efforts towards criminal justice reform, where we are meeting with people who've been serving the reentry population for a long time. That's where we've focused our outreach efforts primarily. And through word of mouth and through showing up and just being there as a resource as people come across clients with disabilities and these service providers realize that they're not able, you know, they might need some more information on how to better serve these clients. That's when they come to us. And so we get a lot of our referrals from, you know, one big initiative is called the Probation and Parole Triage team. And that's a partnership of community organizations and New Orleans Probation and Parole. And it's coordinated by the city of New Orleans, where service providers previously, before COVID, would sit in the lobby pretty much of the probation and parole office. And when parole officers would come across clients who had needs really in any area that they didn't know how to address, they would send them out for a quick intake and triage with whatever volunteer was out there. So that's become a significant source of our referrals. And then the members of that partnership that we've built relationships with, they refer clients. And then we do have a portion, we had a portion of our clients coming directly from the Department of Corrections, but we have experienced some challenges with continuing to engage that population after release that I think we need to work on, and some challenges in accessing individuals who are currently incarcerated.
One question: how do you handle it when guardianship is at issue? Either guardianship from a Social Security benefits perspective, or just straight up guardianship?
Well, so we have not yet had clients referred to us who have a guardian or a curator, but we have had clients who have representative payees. And so in situations like that, we get the appropriate consents to communicate with the rep payee and explain what needs to be reported to Social Security and how work can impact benefits and why, you know, it's okay for this person to explore employment opportunities. And we have had some clients who their goal was to even understand their employment situation. You know, I'm working with one gentleman who came home after 34 years, and he's very, his sister has been extremely supportive, and but he doesn't know much about his finances at all, and that's his goal. So.
How has the screening process changed now that you're doing it either over the phone or over video? You know, a lot of people, especially people who are first contacted, it may be more difficult, at least on the first contact, to do it only over the phone. Has it changed much, or?
I don't think it's changed much. It's just become virtual, and that's the only change to it. I mean, essentially, our baseline assessment is just us capturing just raw data about the client in general, you know, age, incarceration history, things like that. So they can tell us a lot of that stuff virtually. The only real thing is we now are mailing out consent forms and things like that, which takes a little bit more time to get those consents versus when we were just have those consents signed in front of us and start servicing them right away. So that's pretty much the big difference. It's just a lag in getting those consents back to us. But outside of that, we're still servicing them, having virtual meetings and things like that.
How do you integrate families and people who are homeless?
Okay, so first, families. So not all of our clients have the family support that other people have in the disability community that at least I'd worked with in the WIPA program. But a lot of our clients are living with their family members. And I guess the reason I say the support is different is that for some of these people, so much time has passed since they've been with these family members, and there's a lot of trauma that's experienced, and it can be difficult for people to relate to people when they come home who haven't experienced what they've experienced. And, you know, so our clients have a lot of isolation, and then there's also a lot of anxiety over relying on family members for financial support, and they don't know how long that can last. So we ask clients if they want us to involve their family members when they have comfortable relationships with them, where they want us to help explain, you know, concepts to them and help involve them in the process of helping our clients get what they need. Yeah. And then as far as homelessness, Pat, I know you have a large handful of clients that you've dealt with recently on these issues, but housing is, there's a huge affordable housing crisis in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I'll let you take it.
Yeah. So right now in New Orleans, there are about, I think, 36,000 vacancies, right? And about 19,000 of those are others, which could be blighted properties, which could be properties that are just sitting because landlords just don't want to rent them out, right? And so a large issue with that has been kind of creating these large task force groups to see what the needs are and to see how the public policy initiatives could kind of force the housing market into submission in a way that they could, I guess, lower the homelessness in the city. And there are a lot of groups focused on that right now, and especially with COVID-19, there are talks about, you know, entire hotels being developed for formerly incarcerated people who are about to be released due to COVID-19 and the slow, you know, so it's a lot going on right there. And the Greater New Orleans Housing Alliance is essentially trying to make this a long-term effort that once we move these individuals into these hotel programs, then we're going to start really intensive case management services to provide them with long-term services, in the sense that within a couple of months, they're trying to push these individuals further out of these hotel settings and into permanent housing programs. And so that's part of the shift right now, is seeing how this COVID-19 pandemic can like force this effort forward.
Yeah.
And prior to this, assisting our clients, especially during COVID, who don't have housing secured, has been extremely challenging. Those clients tend to fall out of services quicker because their phones no longer work, or they're borrowing cell phones from people. And so it's really important for us to push really hard in the beginning of services when we can with these clients, so we can help them. We can do our best to help them get a hold of what they need to be able to make ends meet for food, and find, emergency shelters they can get into, and to access a lifeline cell phone so that we can stay in contact with them.
No, that's amazing. It's really amazing work. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's been really, really fascinating, and you guys are doing great work. We don't allow people to do the applause or smiley faces or anything like that, thumbs ups, but several people have commented in the Q&A thanking you for your program and your work.
Thank you.
We're at 1 o'clock right now. I have still lots of questions, but of my own, but maybe someday we'll meet or chat on Zoom or something like that. Thank you very, very much for everybody who participated today. Everyone stay safe, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future. For people who have asked questions at the last minute, we'll try to get you some answers. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.